A Beacon in the Dark by Nohai Jiachi. Chapter 4. New You. Oh, that was embarrassing, she says once she's finally back on her feet. I'm so sorry. I'll go and get some hot tea. You two can, talk. I'll be right back. She hurries out and Izuku sinks back into his armchair. Oh my god, he says. Oh my god, you can't just drop things like that. Had Mom fainted, I think I'd have died of a heart attack myself. The words are out before his brain really catches up about who he's talking to, and Izuku slaps both hands on his mouth. But All Might's life feels amused, even possibly fond. I think we will both be less nervous if we start addressing each other a bit less formally, young Midoriya, he says. Does that mean you'll call me Izuku? Because I'd die. I'd literally die. Izuku says, his traitorous mouth moving on its own again. You should just stop talking. His brain-to-mouth filter is clearly fried. Let's avoid premature deaths, All Might says, a laugh in his voice. So, young Midoriya, why don't you tell me about yourself? I tend to overtalk a bit, so I'll try my best to give you the abridged version. Midoriya started, vaguely flustered. So he spoke of how he'd always admired heroes and had dreamt of becoming one ever since he'd been able to walk. How he waited and waited for a quirk that he thought never came. How he'd lost his sight at only 4 and lived his life in the dark ever since. In retrospect, that obviously was my quirk manifesting, Izuku said, pulling at his lower lip thoughtfully. I just didn't know yet. I didn't find out until like a month and a half ago. Toshinori blinked, perplexed. Please enlighten me. And he did, explaining of how his meditation led to him to the blossoming of his ability, these lights that allowed him to see so much. That's how I realized that you didn't look, well, like you, all the time. Your light shifts with you, and people obviously react to you differently, so putting 2 and 2 together, I could only come to that conclusion. I see, Toshinori replies thoughtfully. While they spoke, Inko came back with freshly brewed tea and a plate of cookies she very unsettledly pushed in his direction. There goes another person in the constantly growing collection of people that tries to feed Toshinori. Please, for the love of God, eat something! He dutifully grabs a cookie, if only to avoid her pointed look. Could you tell me more about your cook? From what I gather, these lights you see are unique to every living being. Can you see not-biological matter as well? In a sense, Midoriya replies. I don't think not biological matter actually emits a signal I can perceive, but I can still feel it thanks to the living things surrounding it. It's like their lights reflect on surfaces. That way I'm able to feel them and move accordingly, if that makes sense. It does, Toshinori replies, taking a sip of his tea. You said you saw that villain take away your friend by recognizing the lights. How far were they from you? At the moment, the most I'm able to perceive without focusing too much is about, I'd say, a radius of 300 meters, give or take. I've reached around 600 by focusing really hard, but that made me feel very sick. It's hard to perceive the number of things alive around me. Midoriya finished his tea in record time and was now distractedly rolling the empty cup in his hands. I managed to stretch the radius very far since I first discovered my quirk. But at times the input gets overwhelming and I need to turn it off for a bit. Toshinori took his second cookie distractedly. That is quite impressive, I have to say, he says after taking a bite. Both the scope of your quirk and how much you've been able to refine it after having discovered it only a short time ago. The young Midoriya smiles, red dusting his cheek. I cannot even count the amount of times an ability like yours would have made my work so much easier and saved so many more lives. Toshinori adds, almost too distracted by his own racing thoughts to realize he had said that out loud. Impressive. Very impressive. Izuku Midoriya let out a little hiccup that shakes him out of his stupor. When he turns to her, her eyes are wet. I'm sorry, she says, her voice trembling. Izuku is a good son. A fantastic one, actually. Mom! But he has lived a hard life and has managed to get over so many obstacles, only counting on his own strength, and yet no one but a very selected few around him has ever saw his efforts and recognized his merits. To have someone, no, to have you between all, to see them, you. A moment of silence follows the trembly and yet emphatic sentence before the young Midoriya gets out of his armchair to kneel near his mother, surrounding her in a hug. His unseeing eyes are wet, but he does not cry. Toshinori is just assured yet again that his trust is not wasted with this family.
I do not only recognize young Midoriya's merits,
he said gently, putting a hand on her shoulder,
but yours as well. You've done a fantastic job raising your son, Miss Midoriya. You should be proud.
Her sobs somehow sounds like music in Toshinori's ears. He bids his farewell at almost 3 a.m. after Izuku Midoriya has calmed down enough.
There's much to discuss still, but I think we all need to rest for now,
he said, taking into young Midoriya's sleepy expression.
I will visit in the evening to speak some more later today, if that is okay with you too.
Would you like to come for dinner? Young Midoriya blurted, his mom turning towards her with a frown. Izuku! Oh, please, look, you wouldn't love that, he replied, shrugging.
I would like to come for dinner, as long as Miss Midoriya promises me not to overdo herself,
Toshinori replied with a little laugh.
The woman blushed a bit.
Well, I guess dinner it is then. He turned one last time as mother and son waved at him and wished him a good night, slowly making his way back to his new and still mostly empty apartment. The night air is chilly, and the few visible stars he can see up in the sky seems to shine brighter than usual that night. He wonders if Sensei would approve of his decision. But first, for the time being, he needs to make some calls and hope his living friends will agree with the conclusion he has come to.
So, would you like to go to UA, young Midoriya?
This is already the 3rd time All Might has come for dinner. The first 2 were mostly spent speaking some more of Izuku's life, telling All Might about Milky and Ichigo and the training he has been going through for the past year or so.
I see you already have a solid basic knowledge of combat. That is really good,
All Might said.
I would like to speak with your sensei.
So that was a point of discussion too, making arrangements. They've been thinking about how to introduce All Might without giving his identity away.
I'm sorry, I do not wish to force you to lie to your friends, of course, but I am afraid this is a necessity I cannot negotiate over.
When All Might blurted that question out, Izuku almost dropped his chopsticks. Yes, of course I would like that, his mind screams at him. But can he? Yes, he discovered his quirk, and yes, thanks to it, he is now more independent than ever. But he is still blind. He still had enormous limits, and his strength was only equivalent to the limits of his own body. Could someone like him really make it into UA's hero course?
Young Midoriya, I like to think my judgment counts for something.
All Might nudges him gently, like a lion dad nipping at his pups to poke at their egos.
So I'm going to ask again. Would you like to go to UA?
Izuku closes his fist. Yes, he says. Yes, I want to go to UA.
I'm Toshinori, a talent scout from UA.
The thin, tall, sickly-looking blonde man in a too big suit offers his hand.
Ms. Kobayakawa, young Midoriya has told me much about you, and as I take an interest in his talents, I would like to speak to you about his training, if possible.
Ichigo is left speechless for a moment. Izuku looks nervous near them, playing with his fingers, his head going back and forth between her and the man he introduced to her. A talent scout from UA? She breathes out. Izuku, you scored big this time. She grins, grabbing the man's hand in solid grip. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Shimura. I would love to speak to you about Izuku's future. Izuku relaxes so plainly he looks as if he's about to melt. The talent scout that has taken interest in Izuku is kind of an odd guy, but by the way he talks, Milky realized he probably was a huge dork, just like Izuku. He has been coming to their training sessions on and off, sometimes offering suggestions, mostly just watching. It was clear he deeply respected Mom's training ability as he nods and hums and writes something down in little block notes. Sometimes he talks to her, too. He's very kind.
Young Kobayakawa, I wonder if you also might be interested in a career in heroing, like your friend is.
He asked once. Milky laughed. Nah, no. Best don't wait for me, she replied. I like training with Izuku and Mom, and I know I'm pretty good at self-defense, but I have to be honest, I don't want to unleash my quirk on a living thing ever again. I haven't decided yet what I want to do, but that's okay. I'll find my road like Izuku did.
The man hummed thoughtfully. I see. You seem very driven. I'm sure you will soon find what you really excel into.
Right now, the only thing I excel into is making Izuku work harder, she replied, grinning, and jumped up. Move your butt, Midoriya! That footing is sloppy! Yes, Mom! Izuku replied, grinning with a little salute. The blond man laughed, clearly satisfied by only God knew what. One time, he wasn't alone. He came with a man with long, dark, messy hair and bags under his eyes so big they must be paying rent by now. Izuku had been too focused sparring with Mom to notice at first, and when he spared a single perplexed look in their direction that won him an ass-to-the-grass moment when Mom flipped him over. Focus, Izuku! Yes, sorry, came the immediate reply, as Izuku did not waste a single second getting back up on his feet. The two men did not intervene, all listened, whispering between themselves for a while, and when the dark-haired man left, Mr. Shimura had a smile on his face that Miki can only describe as smug.
I have no doubt that with the amount of time we still have and with your excellent teaching, Miss Kobayakawa, young Midoriya will be more than prepared for the entrance exam anyway. But we have a problem.
They were sitting around a small plastic table in the garden behind Ichiko's gym, teacups and a tray of sweets from the bakery down the road between them. The table was too small for 5 people, and All Might was hunched over, his knees touching the plastic edges. Downsides of being a giant, Ingo guessed with a little internal laugh. What kind of problem? Izuku piped up, a worried frown creasing his eyebrows behind the messy hair.
It is no obstacle. I do not trust you will be perfectly able to surpass my boy, but we must prepare.
All Might said in a gentle voice.
You see, the physical exam usually consists of a point-based system, where the contestants must take down as many robots as possible, 3 models of which give points from 1 to 3, depending on the model you manage to take down, and 1 model which is usually recommended to avoid, as it does not give any point. It is a flawed system.
All Might sighed.
If I have to be honest, I do not approve of it too much. It gives an unfair advantage to those who possess very physically strong quirks, while undervaluing those that, like you, possess different, more subtle kind of talents.
Of course, Izuku muttered, pulling at his lower lip. There's only so much I could do when I'm simply not strong enough. I doubt I could possibly be able to take down a robot barehanded.
But I have an idea.
All Might continued, fishing something from a battered leather bag he brought with him. Hairdryer? Miki asked, tilting one of her eyebrows.
It's just odds I have,
All Might said, leaning over the table to put the object in Izuku's hand.
The young Midoriya, tell me, if you focus on this hairdryer, can you make out the inside components of it?
Izuku has never tried something like that. He usually did not pay too much attention to not living things, just as much as he needed to be able to move freely. He blinked, closing his fingers around the plastic shell of the object, and focused. He could feel, a bit. It was kind of a mess, all those cables and little parts and things Izuku really did not have any knowledge of. I think I can, he said after a good couple of minutes, after everyone around the table had silently, patiently waited for him.
Good,
All Might said.
We have a plan, then.
His home turned into a laboratory, pretty much. There were old, broken appliances everywhere, from washing machines to old phones, opened and dismantled as Izuku studied them in and out. Inko has sort of given up on the controlled chaos. Where are you two even getting all this stuff from? She asked, a little worried, as he and All Might transported in a mini fridge. Oh, you know that beach that no one goes to anymore because of all the garbage? Izuku replied. Fine, just make sure you don't bring bugs or rats in, please, she sighed. And I want the stuff out as soon as you're done with your exam, she added severe. All Might seemed kind of embarrassed as he apologized. Izuku had never imagined he'd end up having to learn the intricacies of technologies one day, but it certainly gave him a new perspective. There's so much I've always taken for granted, he said one day as he rummaged inside one of those super old bulky TVs. I've never thought about how complicated all these everyday objects we use really are.
All Might hummed. That is true, but it's a good realization. Makes you appreciate even more what you have, doesn't it?
Izuku grinned, his cheeks smudged with oil, but then the smile slid off his face. All Might?
Yes?
Do you... A gulp. Do you really think this will work? Toshinori let a couple of seconds pass, weighing the words on his tongue.
I know for a fact that the robots are designed to have weak points. To present young boys and girls like you with state-of-the-art technology would be an unfair and borderline cruel challenge. So yes, I believe that if you refine your ability, you will be able to see those weak points and exploit them,
He says. Young Midoriya hums, wrinkling his nose in distaste.
Is something the matter?
Toshinori asks, surprised by the expression. It's just... You're not giving me an unfair advantage over the others by telling me this, right? The question comes as a surprise, and at the same time, not a surprise at all.
You are honest to a fault, my boy.
Toshinori chuckles.
Do not worry about that. The exam has been the same for years. All your peers will be able to look into it and prepare accordingly if they so desire.
Young Midoriya is watching him so intently that Toshinori just knows he's probing his light, making sure he's not lying, as he once mentioned in passing that he would notice if someone was lying to him.
Don't do that.
He reprimands him good-naturedly.
It's kind of rude, my boy.
The young Midoriya he first met would probably have stammered an apology, blushing to the roots of his hair. This one, instead, flashes his tongue at him playfully. How fast they grow. Izuku's eyes snap open 5 minutes before the alarm is set the day before. It's the big day. In a bit of a daze, he shuffles out of bed. His clothes for the day are ready. His phone is charged. Mom is already tinkering downstairs, trying to stifle her nervousness as she makes breakfast. After brushing his teeth, Izuku splashes ice-cold water on his face. He expected to wake up a nervous mess, but in truth he feels calm.
I won't be able to see you tomorrow as I have to assist to the exams myself,
All Might said the day prior before leaving.
so I'm going to give you my pep talk now.
A thin hand on his shoulder, long bony fingers squeezing gently.
When?
I will, Izuku whispers, closing his hands into fists. I won't let you down. He makes his way into the packed conference room with only a couple of minutes to spare. For all his sureness, he ended up getting a bad kiss of jelly knees as they approached Yuei's gates. Mom, Miki, and Ichiko-san hugged him tight for what felt like forever. We're channeling our strength into you, Ichiko said, half joking. That was enough to make him feel immensely better. He turned one last time for the door, flashing a victory sign toward the now far familiar lights, and then stepped in, taking a deep breath. The problem now was that the room was so packed, Izuku couldn't make out a single free space where he could sit. Surely there must be some free seats still, but in the chaos of lights it was incredibly hard to distinguish. Psst! Hey! You! With the curly hair! A female voice, and then a hand tugging at his sleeve. Over here! There's a seat! Oh! Thank you! He stammers as he slides down into the seat by her side. The girl must have recognized his confusion. Pretty packed, huh? She says. Her voice is gentle, if a bit nervous. I mean, I guess that's to be expected by UA's hero course exams. I'm Uraraka Ochako, by the way. Midoriya Izuku, he replies, and Uraraka takes his hand with only 4 fingers in the cramped space between them, shaking it. Nice to meet you, she says, and Izuku can imagine the brilliant smile on her face. When they got divided into groups, Izuku is relieved to see he's not in the same one as Gachan. No one at his middle school had any idea he was here. As selfish as it was, this was his secret that he wanted to keep until the very last second possible, a treasure close to his heart. That, and he didn't want to humiliate himself further in the very possible case he didn't make it through the exam. Uraraka is in his group instead, which makes Izuku feel better. They are rivals right now, yes, but knowing that at least one friendly presence was near him made him feel a little more brave. He wants to approach her and wish her good luck, when a big hand on his shoulder stops him in his tracks.
What do you think you are doing?
A severe voice. Izuku recognizes it. It's the same boy that has asked questions during the exam briefing. His voice strong and sure, just as his light is.
She is obviously concentrating. Are you trying to obstruct your peers?
No, I just...
Whatever you want to do, don't, the boy replied, and Izuku shut his mouth.
Izuku's hands hurt. He managed to take down a couple of robots by going for their weak spots and with immense effort. Actually, his entire body hurt, his clothes sticking to him thanks to how much he was sweating. All Might's plan did work, but it was a laughable result if confronted with how well everyone else around him was doing. What was all that work for? He asks himself, furious, as he desperately runs, and as more and more robots are taken down by the others, making his chance to score enough points slimmer and slimmer. His eyes sting and he angrily wipes the tears away. He can't just give up now, not like this. Izuku is shaken out of his stormy thoughts when the earth trembles. He turns just in time to see something gigantic. He can't make out how tall the thing is, as the lights of living things dims out, going upwards to the sky. That's the 0 points thing! He hears someone comment nearby. Better run! Lights shoot by him as the other exam goers put distance between them and the giant but useless robot. Every light but one. Uraraka? He calls out confused. Uraraka's light is clearly distressed. There's something blocking her, preventing her from running away. A boulder? Pieces of rubble? Midoriya! She asks, her voice tight. What are you doing? Run! That thing could easily squash her with a single step. Screw the exam, Izuku thinks as his feet already started moving on their own. Ochako could only watch, her eyes wide, as Midoriya charges toward her instead of running away like everyone else did. What a strange boy he is, just barely taller than her, scrawny in his too big gym clothes with that mop of curly messy hair covering half his face. He doesn't look particularly strong, and for what little Ochako has seen of him during the exam, he doesn't seem to have any particularly flashy quirk either. And he's charging full speed towards the giant robot about 1,000 times his size. She wants to scream at him to get away. It's too dangerous. But another wave of nausea hit her. She overdid it, and now she can't even get herself free from the rubble that's blocking her ankle. Midoriya shoots past before she can even say anything, grabbing a piece of broken pipe from the floor, and then starts to climb with a rather remarkable agility up the robot's leg. The robot is still walking forward, apparently not reacting to the little boy that's now near one of its junctures. Midoriya is hanging by one of the thick cables with one hand, his feet firmly placed against the steel, and he's trying to sink the piece of pipe in a very precise spot with all his strength. Ochako has no idea what he's doing. Midoriya must be desperate and out of his mind. There's no way he'd act like this if he was lucid and realized that he was trying to fight with a robot the size of a skyscraper that would merit him a whole lot of 0 points. That is until the robot makes a creaky noise. Its step falters when the leg Midoriya is hitting refuses to work properly, and the thing starts to lose balance, falling on the side. The robot is so heavy that Midoriya is dislodged and launched up in the air by the recoil of the fall. That's when Ochako realizes he was saving her. Izuku is falling. He's going to splat down on the asphalt like a mature tomato. Bye-bye UA, bye-bye Mom, bye-bye All Might. A light embraces him, and his free fall is suddenly slowed down to a gentle glide, as if Izuku suddenly turned into a feather. Uraraka Ochako doesn't let him go until they are both firmly on the ground, alive, and definitely not splattered. Why did you do that? She asks, strained. Izuku slowly stands, his knees weak. The giant robot is not moving anymore. Uraraka is okay. Uraraka is okay. You were in trouble, he replies with a relieved sigh. Someone had to do something. Your hand! She gasps, and Izuku can feel the warmth of blood on his palm. Old sores opened and started to bleed when he held so tight to that pipe, hitting and hitting again, regardless of the pain. It's nothing, he says, and then a horn sounds in the distance, President Mike's voice announcing the end of the exam. Oh. He laughs, nervous, not a sign of mirth in it. His nose stings. I guess this is it for me then. Uraraka has stood up as well. She places a gentle hand on his arm, her light speaking of sadness for him. Then she pukes all over him. Principal Nedzu pats Toshinori on the knee a couple of times. I see what you meant about that boy, he says. He's certainly a very interesting one. When he enters into the Midoriya's household, the boy is sitting on the couch in the living room with a blank, lost expression. He's been like this since we came back from the exam the other day, Inko sighs in a low voice after welcoming him in.
I'm sorry for having kept him waiting,
he replies, scratching the back of his head.
I had a lot of things to take care of. The official results will not be announced for a few days yet, but I figured he'd be down after the exam. Even if it's a bit of cheating, I'd rather just tell him now and take the weight off his shoulders.
Ingo smiles at him, patting gently his shoulder before disappearing in the kitchen, giving him and the boy some privacy.
Young Midoriya.
The boy jumps, turning around with a surprised expression before turning away from him in haste. Oh, hello, he says, voice low. Toshinori sits down by his side, observing. Midoriya is hanging his head low, hands between his knees, nervously tightening into fists over and over again.
So,
he starts casually.
How do you think you did?
I'm sorry I disappointed you, Midoriya whispers back. Toshinori takes a deep breath. So much work to build up the boy's confidence, and yet it takes so little to tear it down.
I'm not disappointed in the slightest, my boy,
Toshinori says.
You did excellently, exactly as I thought you would.
Don't, Midoriya gulps, his throat moving. Don't make fun of me, please.
I'm not. Do you think I really would do that?
Slowly, the boy turns his face up to him.
It is true that your score was very low, the lowest among your group,
Toshinori says, ignoring the flinch that followed those words.
But that was not all there was to the exam, and you did exactly what I expected you to do.
The boy blinks, confused, and Toshinori cannot help the temptation to ruffle his hair.
You showed them all what a hero really is. The young Uraraka came to us, you know. She realized you've ignored your own exam in order to help her, and asked us to share her points with you.
She did?
Seems like you've already got a new friend, my boy,
Toshinori adds in a gentle voice, before continuing.
But in the end, there wasn't the need to do that. The fighting score wasn't all that there was to it, and by showing your willingness to act for the good of others, even to the detriment of yourself, you ended up receiving the highest score in the rescue points, making it into the rankings.
Wait! Izuku is breathless, his heart beating right in his throat. This cannot be real! You mean...
Congratulations, young Midoriya. You are now a student of UA's Hero Course.
The very last few days of middle school trickled by. Izuku lived them in a dreamlike state. He was going to UA. He was going to UA. He was going to UA! The official results would come out any day now. Kachan didn't know yet and had no doubt himself passed with flying colors, as he liked to brag loudly and with gusto. Izuku had no doubt about that too. What Kachan lacked in compassion, he made up with sheer power. No doubt the highest fighting score would belong to him. He had no idea how Kachan would react to seeing Izuku's name in the rankings. Hopefully, the first impact of his explosive rage would come when he was home, far, far away from Izuku. Silence, please, the homeroom teacher called. We are starting to receive the first results of your exams. He called out some names, congratulating various students for successfully getting in their high school of choice. And then Bakugo and... a bit of silence. Midoriya? Izuku could feel the silence that fell in the classroom in his mouth, thick as tofu. The teacher let out a little embarrassed cough after his own hesitation. Congratulations, I hope your future at UA's hero course will be bright. The chaos that exploded, literally, required 5 minutes of their teacher yelling at them to calm down before it could be contained. Some of his classmates shot up from their seats as Gachan's desk exploded into 2 neat pieces as soon as the teacher finished his sentence. Midoriya? No way! What? Soon Izuku was surrounded. Midoriya, when did that happen? Izuku stammered. Dude, congratulations! Someone else exclaimed, their voice sincere. Before he could try to say anything else, hands were on him, friendly petting his shoulders, voices congratulating him from all sides. He expected Kacha to be on his throat at any second now. But he never came. Izuku! Miki's voice came from far away, growing louder in a few seconds as she crashed into him, grabbing him with her arms under his armpit and lifting him up, twisting him around. You made it! She yelled, laughing madly. Izuku couldn't stop laughing, although he felt a bit guilty. All Might made him promise not to tell anyone until the official results were out. It had been so hard not to yell with Miki about it for all those days. Still, she apparently already knew, despite the fact that their teachers shared the news with them just a couple of hours before. How do you know? He asked, laughing. Everyone is chain texting like mad, dude. She replied, finally putting him back down on the floor, but not letting him go. Everyone is so excited for you. It's incredible. Oh, Izuku, I'm so happy. She closed her gloved hand in a fist, rubbing her knuckles on his head madly. Miki, no! He tried to protest between laughs, trying and failing to free himself up from the Miki clamp hug of death. Everyone is so excited for you, she said. Well, that was a new feeling for sure. For a while, Ichiko's gym has turned into Party Central. They simply couldn't stop. Every time they got together at the end of a training session, they just had to celebrate Izuku's successful exam. The boy would react with embarrassed delight every single time, laughing and smiling and dancing with Miki. I'll end up putting on weight, Inko whined with a smile as she brought some more cooked goodies. Well, that means you'll still have to visit me when Izuku will start high school, right? Ichiko replied, making her laugh. I don't need an excuse for that, Ichiko-san. Izuku was living his life on a cloud. Whenever he went in school, he'd get stopped by people congratulating him or wishing him success, patting his shoulders. It was such an alien feeling, but he couldn't deny to himself that it wasn't an unwelcome one. And every time he, Mom, Miki, and Ichigo-san were in the same room, they ended up celebrating in a way or another. Middle school would end the next day, and then the break before the start of high school of UA would come. Ichiko-san and All Might already studied his training regimen for it, and Izuku, eager to get better and better and better, couldn't wait for it. He was humming a tune to himself, walking through that same underpass that completely changed his life some months prior, when a familiar light in front of him stopped him dead in his tracks. I know you can see me, Kachan says. You lying piece of crap. The distance between them rapidly closed as Kachan walked right up to his face. Was it funny? He growls. Kachan, was it nice to laugh behind everyone's backs as you lied to their faces? Kachan, well, guess what? You didn't fool me. Shut up! Izuku's back hits the wall painfully after Kachan grabs him by the collar, pushing him forcefully. For how long did you think you could keep up this recital, huh? Kachan hisses in his face. What was even all of this long con? Have you thought that by acting like a useless piece of crap, it'd make it easier for you to get into UA? Well, I guess it worked, so for once, you were right. Finally, the piece clicks into place in Izuku's mind. He whispers, you think I'm not blind? Like, no fucking shit. Kachan spits out. Do you think I didn't notice? You were dead on in hitting that stupid mud guy months ago, and you don't even pretend to go around with that dumb cane anymore, and now you miraculously made it into UA? Who did you think you could fool? Kachan's hands were still tight on his collar. Izuku's fingers circles around Kachan's wrist. Do you really think I would lie about something like that? He asks, voice low. I think you are a cowardly, lying sack of shit, so yes, I do, Kachan replied without missing a beat. Izuku hates himself for how easy tears come up to him. They roll down his cheeks freely as he uses his other hand to drag the hair away from his eyes. He feels Kachan flinch. Look at me, he hiccups. Look at my eyes! And tell me, do you think I would lie? But he doesn't give Kachan the time to answer. Do you think I wouldn't sell my soul for just a minute of being able to see my mother's face again? To see how the sky looks like, how my friends smile at me? Do you think I wouldn't, Do you think I wouldn't want to be able to look at you, to actually look at you right now and look into your eyes and try to see what words cannot tell me? Izuku coughs, sobs, shaking him. Kachan's hands are less tight on his collar. Do you think I don't wish with all my strength to be able to look at you and try to understand why do you hate me so much? He finishes in a broken voice, his fingers trembling around Kachan's wrist. Kachan let him go as if he'd got burned. Izuku slides on his knees on the asphalt, coughing, tears rolling down his cheeks. The silence stretches long, infinitely so, even if it was just a handful of seconds in reality. Then Kachan turns and runs away. When he enters home, he can hear Mom and All Might laughing about something in the living room. Oh, Izuku! There you are. There's someone... Izuku? His mom starts tearfully as she comes to the door before her voice turns worried. Izuku knows he must look a mess. He hasn't been able to stop crying as he made his way back, tears still rolling down the wet little tracks they formed on his cheeks. Before she could add anything, he walks past her, his shoes messily left behind him, making it in his room and closing the door with the key before sliding down with his back against it, collecting his knees against his chest, sobs shaking him. No, excuse me a minute, Inko stammers before following her son upstairs. Is he usually like this? Aizawa asks, perplexed. Toshinori frowns, a finger on his chin.
Well, young Midoriya can get a bit emotional at times, but I've never saw him quite this distressed before. Something serious must have happened,
he says, worried. Looks like I chose the wrong day to meet this wonder boy of yours. Aizawa replies, unreadable as always. Toshinori hums as they wait downstairs, Inko's voice muffled in the distance. She comes down a few minutes later, pale and frowning, a hand on her mouth. I'm very sorry, Mr. Aizawa, she says. He's refusing to open the door. I have no idea what has gotten into him.
Can I?
Toshinori asks, pointing upstairs, and Inko sidesteps wordlessly. A knock on the door, and then All Might's voice.
Young Midoriya?
If there's one person he absolutely does not want to see him in this state, that's All Might, for sure.
Do you want to open the door?
He asks, infinitely gentle. Izuku cannot stop crying. It's as if a dam has broken into his eyes, but then they've always been broken and they always will. And the tears keep coming no matter how much he has already tried to will them away. No, he manages to say after a beat of silence.
Do you want to talk about what is troubling you?
What is troubling him is this black hole that is open in his chest, sucking everything in. Or maybe spitting everything out. Izuku is not sure. No, he says instead. He can hear All Might sigh from the other side of the door.
My boy, we are all very worried. If you do not feel like talking to us, I hope you will at least take in consideration the idea of talking to someone else.
All Might says.
I know that at your age, sometimes you just do not feel like talking to an adult, but I could think of at least one person that will be sure to listen to you, without any of our adult baggage.
Izuku listens as All Might stands up. He must have knelt down a bit, and goes downstairs. He sniffs a bit angrily, wiping the tears away from his cheek. Useless. They immediately get replaced, and with trembling fingers he takes his phone out of his pocket. Miki? He sobs after she picks up at the third ring. Do you have a minute? Or 20, probably. The morning after, Inko opens the door to a Miki in full casual clothing.
Good morning, Miss Midoriya,
She says, smiling brightly.
Me and Izuku are skipping the last day of school. Sorry about that, but it's important.
Miki drags him into a part of town he has never really frequented at all, replying in a sing-song voice that it's a surprise when Izuku asks where they are going.
Here we are.
She says, her gloved hand still on his wrist as she opens the door. Izuku hears the tingling of chimes, and his nose is immediately attacked by the smell of some sort of chemical, making him sneeze.
Sorry, you'll get used to that. Shiori!
She says, finally letting his hand go to hug whoever approached him.
Izuku, this is Shiori. Shiori, my friend Izuku.
Shiori takes his hand and shakes it.
I can see what you mean, Miki.
She says,
Potential under the disaster.
that finally gets a word out of him. Excuse me?
Miki laughs. Shiori is my hairdresser. She's like magic. Everyone is super envy of my dye job all the time, and I don't share her easily, so you better be grateful I brought you here, Midoriya.
Izuku blinks. You dye your hair?
The two girls laugh as he gets guided and pushed on a seat. Yes, I do, and have you ever bothered to ask? Now sit and let Shiori work our magic. You never asked how she looks.
Shiori asked curiously, her finger carding through Izuku's hair as if she's studying it. He gulps. I lost my sight when I was 4, so my memories of what it actually means to see are very fuzzy. Most of the time asking that would be pointless. I have a hard time visualizing descriptions anyway, he says, vaguely monotone. Shiori hums, distracted.
Oh, I know what to do with you, little disaster.
I don't want my hair dyed.
Izuku replies, the mere idea of having to spell that chemical all the time makes his head spin. None of that, don't worry. We're just gonna go with a bit of restyling. Stay there, I gotta take some stuff in the back.
Izuku turns toward Miki, sitting at his left, with a whine.
You promised me, Midoriya. She interrupted him before he could even start.
Izuku sighs. Shiori works on him for a while, chatting with Miki of anything that comes to mind. Izuku relaxes. Might as well do that since he has no choice but to be subjected to this. It feels like ages before she's finally done, putting the reclining chair back into an upright position and drying his hair, her fingers working methodically and clearly experienced.
And voila!
Shiori says, taking the sheet covering his shoulders away.
What do you think?
He knows that both girls are staring at him as they
I knew it!
Miki hisses.
You have a natural cuteness to you, Midoriya. That mop of hair covering your face all the time wasn't doing you any favors.
Shiori explains.
I didn't even need to do that much, really. I shortened it a bit, freeing your face. You have kind of round features, so they go well with your natural curls. As long as you keep them at this length and take care of them properly, you will do just fine.
I can suggest to use some shampoo and hair conditioner brands to keep your hair soft and easier to manage. Izuku is kind of overwhelmed by the information pulling at his now shorter hair. It feels weird. He's so used to have that constant weight to feel the brush of his hair on the point of his nose, keeping his eyes hidden from everyone else.
Izuku?
Miki says when he doesn't reply.
Do you know why I forced you to come here today?
Izuku shakes his head.
This is the new you.
Miki declares, jumping down from her seat to stand in front of him. He can imagine her standing proudly, hands on her hips.
This is the new you that is going to UA and is going to become a hero and is not going to get his entire soul crushed by the crappy words of someone that has never believed in him in the first place.
Izuku realizes his mouth is hanging open. He closes it.
This is the new you that has nothing to hide, that will face life openly and with a smile and proudly. From the moment you step outside this hair salon, you leave behind all the pain and the fears and the regrets, shed them just like the hair that covered your wonderful eyes.
Miki's gloved hands clap on his cheeks with a soft slap.
You don't have to hide anymore,
she says, her voice lower, serious.
So please, keep your head high and never ever think of hiding who you are ever again. They spend the rest of the day aimlessly walking around the city. They ate ice cream for lunch and burgers for snacks. They went to a park and played on the equipment like kids, laughing. They drank one of those ridiculously expensive coffees, sitting outside and looking at the people going by in their completely different ways. There are 2 girls sitting at a table to your right that are totally checking you out. Milky leaned and whispered at some point. No way! He tried to reply before getting shushed. Nuh-uh! Knew you. Turn around and smile, now. Izuku obeyed, his cheeks burning, knowing his smile was weak, and yet he heard every giggles follow. See? Milky said, smug, obnoxiously sipping the last of her coffee with her straw when he turned around to face her. Shocked. Told ya. When he came home, Mom dropped the steel top of one of her pots on the floor. Hello? He says, smiling. Mom walks closer, her gentle hand on his cheek. She doesn't say anything, caressing him sweetly before taking her hand away. Welcome home, dear. There's so much crammed in that single sentence, but Izuku knows that one sentence, this time, is enough.